The Memphis heat in the summer of 1953 wasn't just a physical thing, it was a feeling, a heavy blanket of humidity that settled over the city, making every breath a conscious effort. But for Elvis Presley, the heat was a constant companion to the fire in his soul. He was 18, gangly and shy, with a quiet politeness that sometimes made people overlook the restless energy buzzing just beneath his skin. He walked past Sun Records almost every day, his footsteps slowing, his gaze drawn to the small, unassuming storefront on Union Avenue. It wasn't grand or imposing, just a former auto glass shop that Sam Phillips, the owner, had transformed into a recording studio. But to Elvis, it was more than bricks and mortar. It was a doorway to another world. It was where dreams, if they were loud enough, could come alive. Inside Elvis, a whole orchestra played a cacophony of sounds he'd absorbed from the world around him. He loved gospel music, the soaring harmonies and raw emotion he found in church. He loved country, the heartfelt stories and simple melodies that spoke of hard times and honest living. And he loved the blues, the deep, soulful wails and hypnotic rhythms that poured out of the juke joints on Beale Street, a world away from his quiet, respectful home life. These weren't just different types of music. They were different ways of feeling, different ways of being, and they all lived inside him, swirling, mixing, demanding to be let out. He worked odd jobs, driving a truck for Crown Electric, an usher at the Lowe's State Theater. He saved every penny, not for a new suit or a fancy meal, but for something much more precious. He had a secret dream, one he rarely spoke aloud, even to his beloved mother, Gladys. He wanted to record a song. Just one. He wanted to hear his own voice coming out of a record player, a tangible piece of his soul captured forever. And most of all, he wanted to give that record to his mother. She loved his singing, told him he had a voice like an angel. It was a small dream, humble and personal, but it burned with the intensity of 1,000 suns within him. Sometimes, walking home after a long hot day, he'd strum his cheap guitar on the porch, his voice a quiet murmur, practicing the songs he knew, but changing them, twisting them, making them his own without even realizing it. He'd sing a country tune with a bluesy swagger, or a gospel hymn with a rhythm that made your foot tap. He wasn't trying to invent anything new. He was just singing what felt natural, what resonated with the vibrant, restless energy that pulsed through his veins. He knew Sun Records was where legends were made, where raw talent was polished into something golden. He knew Sam Phillips was always looking for something different, something no one had ever heard before. But Elvis was shy. He worried his voice wasn't good enough, that he didn't have the right sound. He worried he was just another kid with a guitar and a dream that was too big for him. One sweltering afternoon, with the humidity clinging to him like a second skin, he walked past Sun Records again. This time, he didn't just slow down, he stopped. He felt a pull, a magnetic force, emanating from the small studio. It was as if the building itself was whispering to him, urging him to step inside to unleash the music that simmered within. He thought of his mother, her kind eyes, her unwavering belief in him. He thought of the melodies swirling in his head, begging for release. He closed his eyes for a moment, took a deep breath, and walked through the door. It was July 18th, 1953. He didn't know it then, but with that single step, a universe was about to begin. The first spark of creation had been struck. Marion Keisker, Sam Phillips's assistant, was a woman who saw more than most. She had a sharp mind, an efficient manner, and an uncanny ear for the unusual. She'd been with Sam from the beginning, sharing his vision, his restless search for a sound that could shake the world awake. On that sweltering July afternoon, she was at her desk, sorting through papers, when the bell above the door chimed, announcing a new arrival. She looked up to see a tall, slender young man standing nervously in the doorway. He was dressed neatly, but his clothes seemed a little too formal for the heat. His hair, dark and slicked back, was an impressive sight. But it was his eyes that caught her attention, wide, a little uncertain, but holding a deep, intense glow that suggested something powerful lay hidden beneath the quiet exterior. "Can I help you?" Marion asked, her voice calm and professional. "Yes, ma'am," he stammered, his voice soft, almost a whisper. My name's Elvis Presley. I'd like to record a song for my mother." Marion smiled. She'd heard that one before. Lots of hopefuls came through these doors, dreaming of stardom, or at least a record to impress their sweethearts. But there was something different about this kid. "All right. Mr. Presley, do you have a song in mind?" He nodded, clutching a worn acoustic guitar case. He chose "My Happiness," a sentimental ballad. And then, "That's when your heartaches begin." As he sang, Marion listened intently. His voice was good, certainly, with a rich, clear quality. There was a unique vibrato, a subtle tremor that gave his voice a distinctive edge. It wasn't raw power, not yet, but a peculiar blend of vulnerability and conviction. He didn't sound like the country singers, or the bluesmen, or the pop crooners. He sounded different. Later, when Sam Phillips came in, Marion mentioned a young man. "I had a fellow in today, Sam, young Elvis Presley. Sang a couple of ballads for his mama." Sam, ever the seeker, leaned back in his chair. "What'd he sound like, Marion?" Marion paused, searching for the right words. "He sounded like nobody else. He's got something. He sings a ballad, but there's something underneath, a different energy." Sam raised an eyebrow. "Nobody else, huh? That's interesting." He was always chasing that elusive sound, a blend of black and white music, a raw, authentic voice that could bridge the gap and truly speak to the youth of America. He'd recorded blues legends, country stars, but he hadn't found that one thing yet. "Keep his name," Sam instructed. "Might be worth another." Listen. Weeks turned into months. Elvis continued practicing. He recorded another demo at Sun, a gospel tune, "I'll Never Stand in Your Way," and another ballad, "It Wouldn't Be the Same Without You." He'd call Sun periodically, hoping, but nothing came of it. Sam, meanwhile, continued his relentless search. He was frustrated. He knew the talent was out there, but he just couldn't pinpoint it, couldn't capture it. Then in June of 1954, Sam found himself at a crossroads. He needed something new, something fresh, something that would break through the established sounds. He remembered Marion's words about Elvis Presley. "He sounds like nobody else." "Marion," Sam called out, his voice sharp with decision. "Remember that kid, Elvis Presley. Give him a call, see if he wants to come in for an audition. Maybe try something a little more upbeat." Marion nodded, already reaching for the phone book. "And, Marion," Sam added, "call Scotty Moore. See if he'd be willing to play guitar for him. And tell him to bring Bill Black on bass." Marion's eyes widened slightly. Scotty Moore and Bill Black were established musicians well known in the Memphis scene. They played country western swing, a bit of blues. It was an unusual pairing for a young, unknown singer who supposedly specialized in ballads. But Sam's hunches were usually right. As she dialed, Marion felt a strange tremor of excitement, but in that moment she sensed it was the beginning of something much larger. The tiny tremors of a new universe were starting to ripple outwards. Scotty Moore considered himself a professional. He played guitar with quiet precision, a steady hand, and an ear for what made his songs swing. He and Bill Black, his bassist, were the rhythm section. For Doug Poindexter and the Starlight Wranglers playing honky-tonk and country bop across Memphis, they knew their craft and they knew the music scene. So when Marion Keisker called from Sun Records, Scotty listened, but with a healthy dose of skepticism. "Sam wants you and Bill to come down and play for a young singer," Marion explained over the crackling line. "Name's Elvis Presley. He's been in here a few times. Recorded some ballads for his mother." "A ballad singer, huh? You sure Sam wants us? We mostly do country and some blues. And who's this kid?" Marion's voice held a hint of amusement. "Sam says he's got something different. He just wants to hear him sing with some live musicians. Thinks he might have some potential. Scotty had heard that word 1,000 times. Usually it meant a polite but ultimately forgettable singer trying to ape Hank Williams or Eddie Arnold. "All right, Marion, we'll come down. Can't hurt to give it a try." He hung up the phone and walked over to Bill Black, who was tinkering with his upright bass. "Guess what, Bill Scotty?" said a slight smirk on his face. "Sam Phillips wants us to back up some kid for an audition. Sings ballads." Bill, a jovial man with a quick wit and an even quicker sense of rhythm, snorted, "Ballads? What's he gonna do, make us cry?" Thought Sam was looking for something new. "Marion says he's got something different. Sounds like another one of Sam's wild goose chases, if you ask me." Scotty shrugged, though a sliver of curiosity had lodged itself in his mind. Sam Phillips was, after all, Sam Phillips. The day of the audition arrived, hot and muggy as only Memphis could be in July. Scotty and Bill arrived at Sun Records, their instruments in hand, their minds prepared for another unremarkable session. And then they met Elvis Presley. He was even younger than they expected, just 19. He was shy, almost painfully so, and extremely polite. "Mr. Moore, Mr. Black," he mumbled, offering a hesitant handshake. He had a quiet, respectful demeanor that, combined with his slicked-back hair and slightly ill-fitting clothes, made him seem almost out of place. He didn't look like a singer, not the kind they were used to anyway. Scotty and Bill exchanged a look. This was going to be interesting, or more likely, incredibly dull. They set up their gear, the worn wood of Scotty's Gibson, East 295, and Bill's upright bass looking solid and reliable. Next to Elvis's humble acoustic, the small studio was hot, the air thick with anticipation, though no one quite knew why. Sam Phillips bustled about, his energy a stark contrast to Elvis's quiet nerves. Marion sat at the console ready to hit record. The stage was set, not for a grand performance, but for a simple audition. Scotty and Bill were experienced. They'd seen it all. They knew how to lay down a solid rhythm, how to provide the right feel for a song. They'd played with dozens of singers, but as Elvis tuned his guitar, his fingers fumbling slightly, they couldn't help but feel a slight unease. It wasn't negative exactly. More like the quiet before a summer storm where the air hums with an unseen energy, and you just know something is about to change whether you're ready for it or not. They were about to witness the first tremors of a new musical universe, and they didn't even know it. The first attempts in the studio were, to put it mildly, uncomfortable. Elvis, eager to please and undoubtedly nervous, tried his best to fit the mold. He sang a few more ballads, then some country tunes, songs he knew well, songs that were popular on the radio. He'd chosen material that he thought would appeal to Sam Phillips, something conventional, something safe. His voice was still undeniably good, clear, and expressive, but it lacked the raw, untamed energy that Marion had hinted at, the something different Sam was constantly searching for. It was polite, it was restrained, it was safe, and safe was the opposite of what Sam Phillips wanted. From his perch in the control room, Sam listened intently. His brow furrowed. He'd lean into the microphone, offering gentle suggestions. "Try it a little faster, Elvis," or "Can you put a little more soul into that one?" He was patient, but his frustration was growing. He knew there was something buried beneath the surface, a spark waiting to ignite, but it simply wasn't coming out. He played a few more tracks, trying different approaches, hoping to stumble upon the key that would unlock Elvis's true potential. But nothing worked. The air in the studio was thick with disappointment. Scotty Moore and Bill Black, usually easygoing and adaptable, were starting to feel the monotony. They played their parts professionally, laying down steady rhythms, but their enthusiasm was waning. They had expected a potential revelation, or at least a challenging new style. Instead, they were backing up another young singer doing passable but uninspiring covers. Bill stifled a yawn, tapping his bass impatiently. Scotty shifted his weight, his fingers still nimble on the fretboard, but his mind starting to wander. This wasn't grounding, this wasn't even particularly interesting. It was just another kid trying to sound like everyone else. They exchanged glances that clearly communicated, "Is this it? Is this what Sam dragged us down here for?" Elvis himself felt the pressure intensely. He was acutely aware of Sam's growing impatience, Scotty and Bill's quiet boredom. He wanted to deliver, to prove himself, to show them the real music that lived inside him. But the harder he tried, the more self-conscious he became. The sounds he made felt forced, artificial. The unique blend of gospel, blues, and country that swirled in his heart seemed trapped, unable to escape. He felt like he was failing, could feel the vibrant, restless energy inside him, but it was like trying to scoop water with a sieve. A long, uncomfortable silence settled over the studio. After another failed take, Sam sighed. "Let's take a break, fellas," he said, his voice laced with resignation. "Go grab a soda, clear your heads." The three musicians put down their instruments. Elvis walked away from the microphone. Feeling defeated, Scotty picked up a cigarette. Bill leaned his bass against the wall. The feeling was palpable. This wasn't working. The something different Sam was looking for remained elusive. The nascent universe, it seemed, was still a cold, dark void, its potential unfulfilled. The dream for a moment felt like it was slipping away. The air in the studio was thick with unspoken disappointment during the break. Sam Phillips had retreated to the control booth, his chin in his hand, a frustrated frown on his face. Scotty Moore and Bill Black leaned against their instruments, looking tired and uninspired. Elvis, feeling the weight of the moment, had wandered over to his acoustic guitar, strumming idly, lost in his own thoughts. He wasn't trying to impress anyone. He wasn't trying to perform. He was just playing. His fingers, almost by instinct, fell into the familiar driving rhythm of an old blues tune, Arthur Crudup's. "That's All Right, Mama." It was a song he loved, a song that made his foot tap, a song that resonated with the raw, joyous energy he carried inside. He wasn't singing the lyrics properly, just humming, feeling the beat, letting the music move him. It was pure, unadulterated. Release. Suddenly, a new sound cut through the quiet. Bill Black, catching Elvis's spontaneous rhythm, instinctively picked up his upright bass. Instead of plucking the strings, he began slapping them, a percussive, driving beat that added an electrifying pulse to the song. Thwack, thwack, thwack. It was unexpected, raw, and utterly infectious. Scotty Moore, who had been about to light a cigarette, paused. His head snapped up. He looked at Bill, then at Elvis. There was something happening here. Something different. Picked up his electric guitar, and without a moment's hesitation joined in, adding sharp, clean licks that wove in and out of Elvis's strumming and Bill's slapping bass. The three of them, for the first time, weren't trying to fit a mold. They weren't trying to be polite or proper. They were just playing, letting the music flow through them untamed and joyous. Elvis's voice, no longer constrained by the pressure to conform, burst forth. It was wilder, freer, infused with a vibrant blend of country twang and bluesy swagger that was uniquely his. He was grinning, a genuine, unrestrained smile spreading across his face. Scotty and Bill were grinning too, a look of surprise and delight dawning on their faces. They weren't just playing, they were feeling it. In the control booth, Sam Phillips's head snapped up and widened. He bolted upright, leaning forward, his ears straining, his heart pounding. What was that? He hadn't told them to play, that it wasn't a planned take. It was spontaneous. It was raw. It was everything he had been looking for. "What was that?" Sam yelled, his voice echoing through the studio intercom, a mixture of awe and urgency. "Do that again. Don't stop. Do that again." The music died down, but the energy in the room was palpable. Elvis, Scotty, and Bill looked at each other, still buzzing with the unexpected surge of electricity. They had stumbled onto something, not just a song, but a sound, an energy that was completely new. It was a fusion, an explosion of blues and country, played with an irrepressible joy and a rebellious spirit. This wasn't just a break in the session, it was a breakthrough. It was the Big Bang. The universe had just begun. Sam Phillips burst out of the control booth, his eyes gleaming with an almost manic intensity. He was no longer the patient, slightly frustrated producer. He was a man who had just struck gold, who had finally found the elusive sound he'd been chasing for years. That's it right there," he exclaimed, his voice practically trembling with excitement. "Whatever that was, do it again. Don't change a thing, Marion, roll take now." Elvis, Scotty, and Bill looked at each other, a mixture of surprise and exhilaration washing over them. They'd just been fooling around letting off steam, but Sam's reaction was undeniable. This was something monumental. Sam bustled around the studio, carefully adjusting microphones, checking levels, his movements quick and decisive. He had a singular vision, and now he had the raw material to bring it to life. "Elvis, just sing it like you did. Scotty, keep those licks sharp. And Bill, that slapping bass, that's it. That's the sound." The energy in the small studio was electric. All traces of shyness had vanished from Elvis. He was transformed. With Sam's urgent encouragement, he picked up his acoustic again, his fingers flying over the fretboard. When he opened his mouth, the voice that poured out was no longer polite or restrained. It was alive, it was raw. It was a potent blend of confidence and swagger, tinged with a soulful yearning that captivated everyone in the room. He moved with the music, swaying, tapping his foot, his body channeling the vibrant rhythm that had just been unleashed. Scotty Moore, initially surprised by the sudden shift, found himself locked into Elvis's rhythm. His guitar riffs were clean, sharp, and perfectly complemented Elvis's voice. He wasn't just playing notes. He was weaving a tapestry of sound, building a foundation for the explosive energy. Bill Black, his face split in a wide grin, slapped his upright bass with a ferocious joy, his rhythm providing the driving percussive backbone that made the music undeniably danceable. The sound that filled Sun Studio that day was unlike anything heard before. It was country, but it swung with a bluesy swagger. It was blues, but it had a pop sensibility, an undeniable youthful energy. It was rhythm and blues, but it was sung by a white kid with a gospel heart. It defied categorization. It was new. It was fresh. It was rock and roll. Sam Phillips listened from the control room, a profound sense of triumph swelling in his chest. This wasn't just a song, it was a statement. It was the future. He could practically feel the vibrations of it, reaching out, touching people, changing the very fabric of music. He had found his sound, he had found his voice. He had just witnessed the birth of a new universe. And with every note that echoed through the studio, it was expanding, stretching its boundaries, promising to engulf the world in its vibrant, irresistible light. After the astonishing breakthrough with "That's All Right, Mama," the air in Sun Studio felt lighter, charged with a thrilling new energy. The initial shock had given way to a profound sense of purpose. They had found their sound, and now they needed to solidify it. Sam Phillips, his eyes still shining with visionary zeal, knew they needed a B-side, something that showcased the versatility and unique blend of this new musical force. "All right, boys," Sam called out from the control room, his voice still buzzing with excitement. "That was phenomenal. Now, let's try something else. We need a flip side. What about Blue Moon of Kentucky?" Elvis's eyes lit up. Blue Moon of Kentucky by Bill Monroe was a bluegrass classic, a waltz that told a melancholic tale. It was familiar territory, but with a twist. Elvis picked up his guitar, and with the confidence born from their earlier success, he didn't just sing the song, he reinvented it. Instead of the slow, mournful waltz, he kicked it into high gear, transforming it into an upbeat, swinging tune. His voice, still imbued with that newfound freedom, soared and dipped, playful and full of unexpected inflections. He infused the bluegrass melody with the bluesy swagger they just discovered. Scotty Moore, ever the adaptable musician, caught on instantly. He adjusted his playing, finding new licks that danced around Elvis's voice. A clean, country-inflected sound that still held the raw energy of their earlier jam. Bill Black, his grin still plastered across his face, slapped his bass with renewed vigor, turning the gentle waltz rhythm into a driving boogie-woogie beat. Thwack, thwack. They were no longer just covering a song. They were fundamentally changing its DNA. They were taking something traditional and infusing it with something utterly modern, something that defied easy labels. This wasn't just country music. It was country with a rhythm and blues heart. This wasn't just blues. It was blues filtered through a youthful, rebellious spirit. They were creating a new musical language, a dialect that spoke to a generation hungry for something different. The studio was alive with their collaboration. There was no more awkwardness, no more trying to force a sound. It was pure, unadulterated musical joy. Elvis moved with the music, his hips swaying, his body naturally expressing the rhythm that pulsed through his veins. Scotty leaned into his guitar, his fingers blurring over the frets. Bill, his eyes closed in concentration, was a whirlwind of motion. His bass, a living, breathing extension of the music. Sam Phillips watched, captivated. He knew then, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that "That's all right, Mama" hadn't been a fluke. This was repeatable. This was a force. This was a whole new genre taking shape before his very eyes. The universe they had sparked just moments before was not just a single star. It was a burgeoning galaxy, expanding rapidly, filled with infinite possibilities. Every note they played was a new planet forming, a new cosmic dance beginning. When they finished, a silence fell. But it was a different kind of silence than before. This was a silence filled with resonance, with the lingering echo of something truly magnificent. They had done it. They had not only created a new sound, but had proven its power and versatility. The universe had been born, and now it was undeniably expanding, promising to stretch its vibrant, irresistible light across the entire musical cosmos. The last notes of Blue Moon of Kentucky faded, leaving a vibrant hum in the air that seemed to reverberate in the very walls of Sun Studio. Sam Phillips, after a moment of stunned silence, finally broke the spell. "Boys," he said, his voice quiet but filled with awe. "We got it. We really got it." He emerged from the control booth, a triumphant smile on his face, but also a look of deep satisfaction. He shook each of their hands, a firm, appreciative grip. The session was officially over, but the feeling of profound creation lingered, a sweet afterglow in the stifling Memphis heat. Elvis, still buzzing with adrenaline, felt a lightness he'd never experienced before. His shyness, which usually clung to him like a second skin, had evaporated the moment the music took hold. Now it was slowly returning, but it was different. It was tinged with a quiet confidence, a sense of disbelief that he had actually done it. He had let the music inside him out, and it had been met, not with confusion, but with recognition, with excitement. He mumbled his thanks to Sam, to Scotty, to Bill, his voice still a little hoarse from singing. He felt a profound shift within himself, as if a lock had been broken, a barrier torn down. He knew, deep in his gut, that his life had just changed forever. Scotty Moore slowly unstrapped his guitar, the heavy instrument feeling lighter than usual. He and Bill exchanged a look, a silent communication passing between them. "Did you hear that, Bill?" Scotty said, his voice low, almost reverent. Bill Black, usually full of jokes and wisecracks, was quiet, his normally jovial face thoughtful. "Nope," he agreed, shaking his head slightly. "Never. That kid, he's got something." They started to pack up their instruments, but their movements were slow, as if they were afraid of disturbing the magic that still permeated the room. They had been part of countless sessions, but this one felt different. They knew, in their seasoned musician hearts, that they had played on something special, even if the full magnitude of it hadn't quite sunk in. A new respect for Elvis had taken root, a recognition of his raw, untamed genius. Sam Phillips held the tapes carefully, as if they were fragile, precious artifacts. His eyes gleamed with triumph and vision. He was exhausted, but his mind was already racing, plotting the next steps. He could practically hear the record playing on the radio, feel the shockwaves it would send through the airwaves. He sensed the profound impact this would have not just on the music industry, but on culture itself. He had found the sound that would bridge the gap, that would resonate with a restless generation. He had found his different. Marion Keisker, ever observant, watched the three men. She saw the quiet exhaustion, the lingering exhilaration, the unspoken understanding that had formed between them. She had witnessed the birth of this new universe, from the first hesitant spark to its explosive expansion. She felt a sense of privilege, of being present at a moment that would undoubtedly be talked about for decades to come. Outside, the Memphis night was settling in, still hot, still humid. The world was going on as it always had, but inside Sun Studio for Elvis Presley, Scotty, Bill Black, and Sam Phillips, everything had irrevocably changed. They carried the secret of the new universe within them, a vibrant living thing that had just begun to breathe. It was a shared triumph, a quiet bond forged in the crucible of sound, and the feeling was profoundly, warmly human. The next day dawned with the same sweltering Memphis heat, but for Sam Phillips, it felt like the air itself vibrated with possibility. He moved with a renewed sense of purpose, carrying the precious reel of tape that held the universe they had created. He knew exactly where it needed to go first. To Dewey Phillips at GUI8BQ, Dewey, no relation to Sam, was a legendary Memphis DJ. His show, Red, Hot, and Blue, was the hottest thing on the radio, a wild, freewheeling mix of rhythm and blues, country and gospel. Dewey was modic, unpredictable, and most importantly, he had an ear for new sounds. He wasn't afraid to break the mold. If anyone could unleash this new universe onto the unsuspecting public, it was Dewey. Sam walked into the GUI8BQ studio, tape in hand, a look of quiet intensity on his face. Dewey, larger than life even behind the microphone, greeted him with his usual booming enthusiasm. "Sam, what you got for me today, my friend?" Something to set the airwaves on fire. Sam just smiled, a knowing glint in his eye. "You tell me, Dewey, the tape." Dewey glanced at the label. "Elvis Presley. That's all right." "Hey, Elvis? Never heard of him." "He got some soul." "Just play it," Sam urged, his voice low. Dewey shrugged, a grin spreading across his face. "All right. All right. Let's give the people what they want, or what they don't know they want yet." He queued up the record, gave a quick shout out to the listeners, and then, with a flourish, dropped the needle. The first few notes of Scotty's clean, sharp guitar cut through the static, followed by Bill's propulsive, slapping bass. Then Elvis's voice soared in, raw, confident, and utterly unique. "Well, that's all right, Mama." The studio phone lines, usually busy with requests, lit up instantly, and then they exploded. The switchboard operator looked wide-eyed at Dewey, pointing frantically at the blinking lights. People were calling in not just from Memphis, but from towns all across the Mississippi Delta, demanding to know, "Who is that? What is that? Where can I get it? Hold on, folks, hold on." Dewey bellowed into the microphone, his own jaw slightly dropped. Even he hadn't anticipated this kind of immediate visceral reaction. He had to play it again. And again the calls kept coming. Is he black? Is he white? It didn't matter. It was just different. It was electric. It was everything. Meanwhile, at his family home, Elvis was listening, his heart thumping in his chest. He was sitting with his mother and father, nervously hunched over the radio. When Dewey played the song for the first time, Elvis gasped his voice. His song, on the radio. Then the phone started ringing, and ringing. It was Marion Keisker. "Elvis, Dewey wants you down here right now. The phones are going crazy. People are demanding to hear you." Elvis's eyes widened. He looked at his parents, stunned. His mother, Gladys, rushed to him, enveloping him in a tight hug. "Oh, my baby," she whispered, tears in her eyes. "They love you, son. They truly love you." The quiet, shy boy, who just wanted to record a song for his mother, was suddenly the center of a whirlwind. The universe they had quietly forged in Sun Studio was no longer a secret. It had burst forth loud and clear on the airwaves, a beacon that instantly captivated and connected with countless souls. The dream, once so personal and humble, was now a shared phenomenon. A star had been born, and the world was clamoring for more. The interview with Dewey Phillips that night was a whirlwind for Elvis. He arrived at WDABQ, still a bit shell-shocked, his heart pounding like Bill Black's bass drum. Dewey, riding the wave of public frenzy, put him on the air almost immediately. Elvis was nervous, stuttering a bit, but his genuine gratitude and humility shone through. When Dewey asked him which high school he attended, it was a subtle way to let the callers know he was white. A necessary clarification in segregated Memphis, where a sound this black was unheard of from a white artist. Calls continued to flood in a cacophony of excitement and demands for more. The next few days were a blur. That's all right. Sold out almost immediately. The calls for public appearances started pouring in. Scotty Moore and Bill Black, suddenly finding themselves in the eye of the storm, were thrust into a new reality. Their steady gigs were replaced by wild, electrifying performances with this shy, revolutionary kid. Sam Phillips was hailed as a genius. His stubborn search for that different sound vindicated in a way he could scarcely have imagined. The universe they had created in that unassuming studio on Union Avenue was not just a song. It was a phenomenon. Rock and roll, as it would soon be called, wasn't just a new genre. It was a cultural earthquake. It shattered barriers, racial, social, generational. It spoke to a yearning in the youth of America, a desire for freedom, for expression, for a sound that was raw, honest, and undeniably alive. It gave them an identity. That one recording session, those spontaneous moments of improvisational genius, had opened a portal. It was the big bang of a new era. The innocent collision of a shy truck driver with a boundless musical spirit, a visionary producer with an unshakable belief, and two seasoned musicians open enough to embrace the unexpected. It was a perfect storm of talent, timing, and passion. Elvis Presley's first recording session was more than just music. It was the birth of a new way of life. It ushered in a universe of leather jackets, gyrating hips, and electric guitars that screamed with emotion. It gave voice to rebellion, to love, to joy, to sorrow, all wrapped in a pulsating rhythm that made you want to move. It broke down walls between black and white sounds, merging them into a thrilling, undeniable force. Years later, the legend would grow, the fame would soar, but the essence of it all remained rooted in that humble studio. It was about pure, unadulterated music. It was about a dream born in the heart of a young man, brought to life by the belief of a handful of people, and unleashed upon a world that was ready, whether it knew it or not, for its universe to expand. The music of that first session, That's All Right, and Blue Moon of Kentucky still resonates today. It's a powerful reminder that sometimes the most profound changes begin with the smallest, most unexpected sparks. It's a heartwarming testament to the power of authenticity, the magic of collaboration, and the timeless universal language of music. The universe Elvis Presley helped create that day continues to expand, its stars still shining brightly, inviting new generations to dance to its irresistible beat.